In 1 hectare of land, there's over 1,000 different species of trees, just trees. If we reach anywhere from 21 to 24% of deforestation, what ends up happening is the Amazon will start producing carbon instead of taking in carbon. And we cannot begin to imagine what will happen on this earth if the Amazon starts to go into something called savannization. I was very naive when I first arrived there. I thought in terms of the deforestation, for example, it was something that had happened maybe 7 years ago, but not something that was happening right now until I got there. It's a big part of what we focus on in Sacred Amazonia, reforestation at scale, but doing so in a way that we're really taking it from the ground up. I feel that as we continue to educate ourselves and continue to really come together, that we can begin to heal as an earth, as a global earth family, and that one cannot happen without the other.
This is the Human Future Podcast, where we explore the intersection of technology and spirituality with some of the world's brightest minds. Together, we paint a vision of the desirable future and discuss the actionable steps to make that vision a reality. And now, without further ado, let's begin. Welcome, Santana. Thank you for being here. What a pleasure to have you in the space. You might be... I had guests who I knew less than you, but we've had one interaction as we were just chatting about 4 years ago during COVID, and that was it. And then we still stayed in touch. We knew of each other's journeys and kind of seen each other's progress. So it's been great to kind of witness what you've been up to, and you were sharing that you've been doing kind of the same thing with me, and I'm glad that we're reconnecting and now speaking about some of the amazing work that you're doing in Amazon with Sacred Amazonia Project, nonprofit, which I'm excited to dive deeper into. And so maybe this is a good place for us to start by you a little bit introducing yourself and sharing more about the work that you're doing in Amazon, protecting the forest, protecting the culture of the tribe, Kofan tribe, and tell us a little bit more.
Okay, so I am Santana Iglesias. I am the co-founder of Sacred Amazonia, and there's so much I want to tell you about what it is that we do, but also how we got here in the first place. Okay. So our main focus there in the Amazon right now, we're in the Colombian Amazon, very close to Ecuador. Actually, we work with an indigenous tribe. They're called the Kofan. They're one of the oldest indigenous tribes of the Amazon rainforest. They actually are considered the protectors of the rainforest. And it's such a crucial role that they have. And I'm so blessed to have found myself in their presence and have them to really allow us to be there in their presence, because so much is happening in the Amazon rainforest right now. I was very naive when I first arrived there. I thought, in terms of the deforestation, for example, it was something that had happened maybe 7 years ago, but not something that was happening right now until I got there. And so I started to really begin to understand what it is exactly that they're facing. And the deforestation is not just something that we can look at and say, oh, it's because of this or it's because of that. It's so many reasons, not just illegal loggers, illegal miners. Cattle farming is a huge issue. It's 80% of the deforestation in the Amazon rainforest is actually due to cattle farming and all that goes into it. But you can't point fingers and you can't blame, because there's reasons behind everything. For example, with cattle farming, for a lot of people, that is inherited within their family. It's what they've learned how to do, and it's what they're good at. They don't have the understanding of what it's doing at scale of an impact of everyone coming together and really working in this specific profession. For them, they have maybe 10 hectares of land, and that's their personal family business, and they don't see anything wrong with that. And when it comes down to a small scale, there is nothing wrong with it. But as we look at it on the macro, it's having a huge impact. And it's like a very delicate dance that we're working with right now to better understand, not just the issues that are facing us in terms of large scale deforestation, but it's how we can go in and start reforesting, but also not take. Because we're not trying to take away someone's business, someone's livelihood. A lot of these people are doing these types of jobs because there is nothing else. Yeah. And if they need to keep food on their table and a roof over their head and take care of their families, who am I to go in and say, no, you can't do this anymore, unless I'm going to be providing an alternative. So that's a big part of what we focus on in Sacred Amazonia is like reforestation at scale, but doing so in a way that we're really taking it from the ground up. A lot of people think that reforestation is something that like we're just going to go into the Amazon and just start, you know, dropping seeds. There's so many projects. Like I saw one recently where they drop 1 million seeds by a drone and they're like, yes, we did it, guys. We reforested this area. And I've come to learn, especially, you know, we're working with this amazing ethnobotanist. And he's been teaching me so much about what it means to reforest one of the most biodiverse places on our earth. I've said this so many times, but when you look at the Amazon rainforest, and this is such a profound fact, that in 1 hectare of land, there's over 1,000 different species of trees, just trees. I'm not talking about any other type of plant or species, correct? Right. So right now we have a test property, what we call our test property. It's about 10 acres of land that was originally a cattle farm, because what we're doing is looking at how we can take what is originally a cattle farm and develop it into an actually fully forested rainforest. And not just a fully forested rainforest, but something that actually could produce profit without having to deforest. So it's a really cool project. It takes a lot of work because, you know, it starts from the soil. There's heavy pesticide use, again, because there's not many other alternatives there. So finding new ways to be able to handle the soil. On top of that, there's so much I can say because it's so complex. There's something called dali grass, which is this specific type of invasive species there that they use for cattle because it's grass that grows quickly and the cows can eat it. But for us to actually be able to plant there, we have to learn how to remove that grass effectively. So we've gone through trial and error time and time again and have finally figured out a way to effectively do it and use it actually to create compost to regenerate the soil. And then it's the species in general. So there's so many species that are becoming endangered and that are specifically important, not just to the region, but also to the Kofan people themselves. And we're having to go deeper and deeper into the rainforest to even find these species to be able to cultivate them on this property. So this property is also acting as a seed bank for us. And the idea with it is that like throughout this process, which we are fully documenting this process, we can have mapping, actual mapping for people, not just us to be able to reforest at scale, but anyone who wants to reforest. So specifically, of course, in the Amazon rainforest, because we'll be able to really target the processes that are specific to that type of region. However, we feel that with this information, people all over the world who are facing these types of large-scale reforestation projects can have access because maybe all the details won't be the same. However, the processes and the mapping will be, and can give people really strong starting points of like how to start tackling such large-scale projects. So that's the reforestation side of things. And then the other side that we really focus on is cultural preservation, because the Indigenous people are so crucial to the long-term sustainability of the rainforest because they have a beautiful working relationship with that rainforest. For example, like I told you, they're literally called the protectors of the rainforest because to them, the rainforest is everything. It's their grocery store, it's their hospital, it's all of it. And they are also the ones who have all of the knowledge of what it is that you're even looking at when you come into the Amazon. Because like I said, it's so diverse, it's so vast. If I were to go in there on my own and try to identify all of the species that are required to reforest just 10 acres of land, God knows how long it would really take me. And so being able to work hand in hand with the Kofan Indigenous people, I'm so grateful for them because they're able to look at a blade of grass and tell you, okay, well, if you cook it, then you're going to be able to help with this, this, and this. However, if you do this, you know, like they're so detailed with everything that they know. And so that's a part of it. Also, the language, the Kofan language, we're really working on being able to document that language, not for external use, but for internal use, because what we're seeing is a very big gap of knowledge when it comes to what the elders know, obviously, and what the youth know. And you're starting to see a bit of a divide and a separation because a lot of westernized concepts are grabbing the attention of the youth of the indigenous communities.
Yep, yep.
I think that's kind of the best way to say it. And so in order for us to actually preserve what it is, the wisdom and the knowledge that they have, we feel that a really amazing way to do that, and what we've been doing, is working with students that are allowing us to document not just language, but culinary practices, building tools and crafts, sacred medicines, which is a huge one, as well as territory. And so with all of this knowledge that we are able to gather from the elders, we're able to document and basically create materials for the indigenous community themselves, not to be dispersed out, because their information is their information and it's private for a reason. And it's up to them if they want to share that with the external world, but specifically documenting this just for them to be able to have themselves.
Right.
So it's a big process, and these are just little pieces that I'm touching on, because I could go on for hours. But that's
thank you.
In essence, what we're doing there.
It gives a great overview of what's at stake and what's involved in the things that you guys are dealing with. And there are millions of directions we can take. I wanted for you to maybe frame in the shortest possible way the two problems that you're solving, or maybe one big problem you're solving. What is that exactly you're tackling with the deforestation or reforestation? It's maybe tapping into the global warming, like the like ruining the like what exactly? How would you frame that problem that you're addressing?
So if we look at it from the macro, the Amazon rainforest is one of our largest rainforests on the earth, and it really does act as the lungs of the planet. But beyond that, it acts as so much more, right? So they say 20% of our oxygen comes from the rainforest. There's people who debate that. They say that oxygen is specifically for the rainforest, but take it as you will. The rainforest is also responsible for 20% of the ocean's fresh water. So imagine without that, where would our oceans be? The Amazon rainforest as well, it acts as one of the largest carbon sinks on the planet, meaning instead of producing carbon, that rainforest actually takes in carbon and then produces oxygen for us. It sounds like a simple thing, but when you look at it like this and you see that right now we're at about 19% deforestation in the Amazon. If we reach anywhere from 21 to 24% of deforestation, what ends up happening is the opposite. And the Amazon will start...
Like a tipping point happens, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Producing carbon instead of taking in carbon. And we cannot begin to imagine what will happen on this earth if the Amazon starts to go into something called savannization. So basically turns into a desert, because the rainforest stops producing enough water at that point for the entirety of the rainforest. Huge problem. And so when we sit here in our comfortable homes, whether we're in the US or anywhere in the world, thinking that something like this does not affect us directly, it really does. And I cannot begin to explain the ways that it could. For example, if the rainforest stops producing enough water for the rainforest, that means it's going to stop producing water for us as well in the United States. What do we mean by that? A majority of our rainfall in the Midwest comes from the Amazon rainforest. People don't realize this. And this is one of the big reasons why we're experiencing some of the worst droughts in history. That is why a lot of farmers are walking away from their land, because they're not able to produce. If we're not able to produce food at scale in the United States, what does that mean for us? We could be facing one of the largest food crises we've ever seen. And people don't know what that means because we haven't experienced it in this generation. And so these are just small pieces of what the rainforest means to the entire world. And so if we are not coming together and making better choices, and at least doing something to help the deforestation side of things, halt it, slow it down, I can't really say what that's going to mean for us globally in the long term. And by long term, I don't mean 50 to 100 years from now.
Yeah, we probably don't even have 10 years. We really have to take drastic. So I want to understand the scale of the worsening or improving, like the condition of this situation over the last, let's say, 5 years. Has it improved or became a lot worse? Like tell me a little bit about the change that has happened in the last 5-10 years.
So it's a bit of a dance, right? So we were improving, and then I don't really want to get into politics, but due to certain politics, it started decreasing. I really don't know how to say this politically correctly. But anyways, the point of it is that deforestation skyrocketed, and we got into a position where we didn't really know how it was going to slow down. Politics changed again very recently. We're very grateful for that. And now we've seen a bit of a slowing of the deforestation. We are in a position at Sacred Amazonia where we're not heavily focusing on the deforestation side of things, but how much we can rapidly reforest simultaneously to start creating balance. We're also in a position now where we're creating like other opportunities for people. So like we have something called the pollinator program. And the pollinator program allows people to, in essence, become beekeepers. There's a bee that we're working with called the Melipona bee. It's a stingless bee. It's super cute. And they have little tiny bee boxes that are about this big. And it makes it very accessible for families to be able to beekeep. And the beautiful thing about this honey is it's actually worth 7 times more than what would be a normal honey on the market. So for us, it's like a twofold, right? So people are able to create income in different ways and also be able to start repollinating the area, because something that we also saw recently was a huge drop in pollinators because of heavy pesticide use and spraying that took place just a few years back, and in essence killed a majority of the pollinators. So a big part of our reforestation is also that. How can we continue on without that? So, finding these solutions that also act as solutions for helping people have other options.
Throughout the time of you doing this work, can you try to graph your hope, how much hope you've had for the future? Has it been increasing, decreasing, staying stable? Like, how would you?
I would say increasing. I have always had so much hope, but through this process, specifically in the past 4 years, I've seen so much growth, not only in like the work that we're doing on the reforestation side of things, but also as communities coming together. So you saw a lot of issues facing Indigenous communities, right? Because it's almost like a land grab. They're working so hard to just protect the land that they do have access to. And when I first came into the picture, it was a real fight. And now we're coming to a place of like peaceful conversations. And since we're in also a position that we're providing alternative options for individuals to be able to make a living for themselves, like you're starting to see a balance, and you're starting to see like this true coming together to find alternatives to be able to maintain the forest and also start to conserve it and grow it. So it's actually, from the outside, you could see it as like this depressing story that the Amazon is going down. But from the inside, and you see everyone coming together, I think it's just so much bigger than we can imagine. It's so much more than reforesting the Amazon. It's really coming together. And I feel like that coming together is healing us as individuals. And I think that's the only way for us to heal the earth is by healing us, right? It really goes hand in hand.
And the core issue originated from the demands of the Western world, would you say? Is that the main core reason why this is all happening?
We can't just put it on the Western world, right? It's everywhere. And the Amazon is so rich in resources, right? Not just wood, but also oil, gold, all of these things. And so the demand comes from everywhere. And I think, especially if we look at cattle, right? That's a huge demand. And that's not just from, I'm not calling people out for eating meat. It comes from everywhere. Even the fashion industry plays a huge role in the deforestation of the Amazon rainforest. from leather goods. And so I'm not in a position to tell people what to do with their lives. I'm just saying that if we can educate ourselves, and although that we may feel that like my one decision about this one thing that I'm doing is not going to affect everything, if everyone feels that way and everyone's just making one decision or one thing here or there, we end up in these situations that we're being faced with right now. And so I don't think that I'm in, like I said, any position to tell people what to do with their lives. I just would like to be more of a voice for what's going on to help people to better understand that the decisions that they're making, what impact that it's having, not just on their immediate surroundings or their immediate self, but on the world as a whole. And I think that once we can start to wake up to that, I think things are going to start to change naturally.
From what I'm understanding, you guys are creating, in a way, like a template, a blueprint that could be utilized in other areas, that you don't have to put all of this research work and understanding of the ecosystem. You can just kind of plug it, modify it a little bit, and be very efficient at reforesting a new area. Is that kind of what it is?
Yes. And of course, they're still going to have to take time to really understand their current ecosystem, right? Because, all of the species will be diversified. That being said, I feel that this is more of like a mapping and a blueprint for individuals who like want to take this on to be able to understand it's not this like huge mountain that they don't know where to begin, that they actually have the resources and the understanding, okay, this is going to be this like 6, 7, 8 step process that I'm going to be able to implement. All I need to do is now plug in like these main pieces and make it happen.
Right.
And so I think really for us, we're getting all the trial and error out of the way. To really give someone really what it's going to take to be able to reforest at scale. Again, it's one thing to reforest in like 1 acre of land. It's a whole nother to do it in 500,000 acres of land.
Right. Could you tell me some steps, like what kind of those steps are in the process that somebody have to go through in a new area? What are they?
Yeah, I mean, I won't go through all of them because it would take a while.
Just give me like a glimpse of what that
but just
involves.
A couple of things, for example, like we were talking about before, like soil, really understanding the soil, understanding like, and it's not just soil in one area, it's soil in the entire property of whatever it is that you're working on. And so really getting down to like that as like the base, once you can really understand what you're working with and like what it's going to take to get it to the position to be able to actually start planting. There's like the whole section of really understanding like what are the key species to that area. And so key species are things that are not only going to be like the building blocks for that reforestation, but also it's going to allow endangered species to start coming back. So it's a beautiful kind of symbiotic system that you'll get to learn more based off of the land that you're working with. The other side of things, like we were talking about, is pollinators. Like, where do they play a role and how does that make sense within your property? Right now, we're specifically focusing on bees, and where we thought was just like 3 different species of bees that are native to that area, we're finding there's actually potentially 8, 9, possibly even 10 species. We're still doing that research right now. And how do they work together? How do you begin to work with them? And so it's a beautiful dance. I think that's the best way to describe it, where you have to have your mind completely open and ready to receive so much information. Because when you look at an ecosystem, it's this beautiful blending together of magic. I don't really know what better word to use. And it's like, how do you put yourself in the position to not interrupt, not disrupt, but to be able to kind of hold a lending hand to to the flow of things. And so those are a few pieces. Another thing that we're focused on right now is understanding the land where it is right now and what could be happening in 20 years from now. So we're right on the base of a river, and there's a pretty strong cliff drop. So what I need to understand now, and it's a big thing we're focused on, is like, how can I strengthen the borders of the land to prevent long-term erosion. Because if I reforest, let's say, an acre of land right on that riverbed that we don't know what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years from now, then like how do we dance with that?
Right.
And so all of these pieces come into play. Water flow on the property. How do you handle droughts? How do you handle heavy rain season? How do you take like small seedlings, for example, and get them to be 4 to 6 foot trees without being taken over by any other species? So it's a lot, but it's a process.
So are you guys utilizing some of the work that's been done maybe years in the past? I'm sure people have worked on understanding the ecosystems, things like that. How much are you utilizing that type of knowledge in your work?
We're definitely utilizing it. We're utilizing it. We're utilizing it, and it's not 100% applicable to where we are. Like I said, potentially if we were reforesting like a pine forest where we have just a specific species that we're working with, I just think it's a bit more complex where we are. It's more complex than anything I've seen. And I have a past of like working in this like world of permaculture, for example. And even here in South Florida, we have a huge diversity of species here. Step into the Amazon and you're like, wow.
Right.
This is a whole nother game.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've heard this advice. I mean, I think it was, I don't remember. Maybe Alan Watts was kind of sharing it or something like that. Where the best way to heal something is to kind of like leave it alone and not kind of mess with it. But the issue that we're facing is there's constant messing with it, and then you guys are just trying to do your best to, at the same rate, hopefully at the same or more rate, to heal it, basically, because we don't have the luxury of just letting it do its thing and just leave it alone type thing, right?
I hear what you're saying, and I think in certain areas that is a great way to allow it to reforest. When we're looking at something like cattle farms, is a little bit different, right? Even if I were to buy out a cattle farm, for example, and I just left it, what would happen is an overgrowth of this invasive species called dahlia grass. This grass does not allow anything else to grow.
Right.
Truly. And to give you an example, like in our first trials of being able to remove this grass, because keep in mind, we're also doing this without pesticides because we're trying to do this 100% organically and not be able to kill any other species, specifically the soil. So we actually hand pulled out of 1 acre of the land all of the dahlia grass, hand pulled it out of the ground. 3 to 4 weeks later, already was grown up to my hip. I'm 5'10". Let it go for 2 months, it's overhead. So it's definitely been a process. And so it really just depends on what it is in the area that you are trying to reforest. I think in some areas, 100% leave it alone, and it's going to naturally do its part of going back to where it was when it was fully forested.
Maybe you're trying to kind of speed up the healing process. Leaving alone maybe is the solution on the, let's say, 100-year time frame. Maybe it will balance itself out, but what you're trying to do is like really do it correctly at the first stage where it sets the new foundation for new life to emerge.
Right. And I think also, like you said, it's like the timing of things. Like it is a speeding up process, but also like providing, for example, like corridors for these endangered species of animals to be able to move from one section of rainforest to the other. Also providing, like right now we did a whole assessment on like what are like the main fruits and berries and things like this that are important to certain animals that are endangered in that region. Food.
Yeah.
Like, it's something that we think is so simple, and we're like, oh, but there's food in the rainforest. But if you were to be there and look around, especially when you look at things like slashing and burning, like, there isn't food.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of issues that is beyond like what we can say, okay, like, let's just leave it alone. Because we don't want to lose what is already dwindling.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on the scaling part. How do we scale the impact? What do we do? What you've learned? Yeah.
So it's a combination, I feel, of large-scale reforestation and also conservation. It's a process. You know, what you're seeing in Brazil, for example, is conflict. It's like a literal civil war happening between the indigenous peoples and those who are coming in and trying to take over this land. We are not trying to do that. So from the places that we're working from, which is Colombia and Ecuador, we're moving in a space that we're really supporting the indigenous people to be able to maintain their land, to be able to protect their land non-violently, a lot through like new policies and being able to document properly like exactly what is their land through trail cameras, drones, etc., and be able to manage what it means to protect something at scale like this. So again, you have the conservation side of things, but then also the rapid reforestation side of things. I think those two in combination with also providing alternate job opportunities that involve protecting the rainforest rather than taking it down for profit also makes a huge impact as well. And so that's just from the inside, and from the outside, it's kind of what we're doing now. Going out and speaking and telling people what it is that is actually going on there and how it is directly affecting them, and then providing options for them as well to make different choices. So it's not just one thing.
For sure. To what extent do you directly, or how often do you directly interact with the Kofan people and indigenous tribes in the work that you're doing? Because I'm sure some part of it, you guys can be self-sufficient. You can do the work, what you need to do by yourself. You don't need their, or tell me, how does that work?
We speak and work with them all day, every day.
Oh, always. Yeah.
We're 100% in partnership with them, and we're doing this together.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, it's not my land. It's not. And it is an honor for me to be there standing by their side. And so it's nothing I can do just by myself. And so with permission that they have given us, we have been allowed to help them to protect their home.
What have you learned from them? Something new that you've learned from them?
What haven't I learned? So much. I think one of the biggest things that I am continuously learning from them is the way that they move in their everyday life with so much patience, so much kindness, really listening to the forest. And just as I shared that I understand that I am a guest in their home, they understand that they're a guest in this big home. And the way of truly living a life that is sacred, I think, is something that I am understanding moment to moment, because it's an ever unfolding process. Oh man, and really learning your place in it all. Humbly, with gratitude and so much love.
How do we infuse the future with that type of approach to life? What do we do? How do we transmit that type of energy into the world? What do we do?
I think that we are doing it through these conversations, through everyone that we meet, by being it, sharing as much as we can of what we see that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the awareness. When we can have the awareness and we can really learn how to be here now, which sounds funny, but it's so real. To take a real understanding of ourselves, to really take it in this exact present moment and be internally guided with every choice that we make, every step that we take. That's, I believe, living a life that is sacred. Presence.
Yeah. So you co-live in the Western world. Conversations like this, I agree, are very important. In fact, using media and technology in a conscious way is one of the main things that I'm promoting, partially starting this podcast, and really start to kind of like blast the digital domain with the a vibration of a higher vibration of more awareness, more understanding of your place in the world, and using these tools to magnify the intentions that we have around bringing positive change into the world. Is there any other modalities or any other methods that you would maybe recommend or people look into? Maybe join a nonprofit, or I don't know, like any other donate into some nonprofit like your own. Any other ways that we contribute?
So I think there's, like you said, multiple ways to contribute.
Yeah.
Of course, donations are always great, right? Because we need them to be able to operate on the level that we need to operate. If that's all you can do, that's enough. That's big. It's huge. If you're not able to do something like that in the moment, educating yourself, spreading the word, sharing the information. Sharing the information is so important. Maybe you don't have enough what you believe physical dollars to share in these projects. But maybe you have connections. Maybe you know someone who could be of help to something like this. Maybe you have ideas. Maybe something has come to you where you're like, you know what? I really feel like this is the way that we'll be able to conquer this issue. And so speaking, sharing, showing up in all these different ways all contribute. It really does. Making different decisions with your day-to-day.
Yeah, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and start introducing human future is the name of the podcast, and technology playing a big part of the conversations that I'm having, and how to utilize this new thing that humans invented in serving the greater good, serving the planet, and how to utilize it in the most constructive, useful ways. In the work that you're doing, is there a place for technology to amplify this work? And if so, in what ways?
So many ways.
Yeah.
A big way, for example, I'll use something so small and then I'll go to the grand scheme of things.
Yes.
Like recently, we brought this amazing drone, right? To be able to have a larger overview of the area that we're working on and of the territory of the COFAN in Colombia specifically. For me, this was huge because I was like, wow, I can have a much better idea of what it is that we're doing and how it is like we'll be able to accomplish it. But for the Indigenous people, that was the first time in their life that they've ever actually seen exactly where they are from above. Huge, huge. And so for us, when we think of something like so small, like, oh, just some drone footage, for them is mind-blowing. Right? Trail cameras, huge. They're able to, because if you look at, for example, 50,000 acres of land, how do you manage that? And how do you make sure that you're not having people trespassing on that property and logging? Because they can log in 20 minutes. Trail cameras play a huge role in that, being able to know exactly what movement's happening on the property and where to be able to go directly to that space. So that helps a lot in conservation. I think like other forms of technology that we're looking at right now in terms of like the fundraising and educational side of things is what's coming, augmented reality. So we're really looking at ways that we can take people from their living room into the Amazon rainforest to actually see firsthand what's going on. Not just the intense side of things, but also the beauty and the magic and what it is that they're contributing to preserving. So there's all different ways that I feel that we can utilize technology for the better. And especially in situations like this, where if you can take someone and really get them to feel what it means to be there, that's huge. All you need to do.
Yeah.
Because people will understand right away.
Right. AI is playing a more and more important role in our lives. It's a newer thing, but it's kind of like taking over now. One kind of, when you were describing the kind of mapping out and understanding the ecosystem, the complexity of it, I think AI can play a role in helping to map all of the relationships and understanding a very complex ecosystem in a similar way how AI will be able to help us solve societal problems that are so interdependencies. There are like billions of different dependencies in the world, and that's why no one really knows how to solve the problem. It's all intertangled and strings pulling all kinds of ways. And I see the rainforest is a similar thing where one thing disappears and it could have a significant impact on the whole ecosystem. So I wonder if there's a use case or a way to utilize AI to start like really inputting it and then mapping it out. So maybe a question for you, how do you guys document it? Like in what form does it, what does it look like? What does the documentation look like?
Definitely a better question for my ethnobotanist because he is the one responsible for documenting everything. We're not currently documenting with AI, I can say that. This is a complex question.
Yeah, maybe it's outside of your expertise. Maybe that's not something you focus on for sure. Yeah.
Well, the complexity really more so comes from when you are working with very sensitive information, because especially when we look at plant species that are very special to the Kofan people, and all of the healing modalities that comes along with this is ancient wisdom that's been passed down for generations over 1,000 years. And for them to just give that information is not going to happen with just a group of people coming in and saying, oh, hey, I have this new technology. Can I have all of the wisdom from your ancestors so I can put it in here for the rest of the world?
Right.
So it's a really interesting thing. Yeah. I'm not saying it can be done, not in that way.
Yeah.
It's a dance.
Yeah, I'm just curious. So, I mean, I understand that they want to preserve it for themselves because it's served them for thousands of years. What are the negative effects of the whole world knowing about, let's say, healing modalities using plant medicine and things like that? What are they?
I guess I could use an example.
Yeah.
If, let's say that there's a certain species of plant that would be very lucrative to be able to get that plant. What you have happen is something that has already happened so long ago with the rubber trade. Rubber was amazing for everyone. And so you had a rush of people coming from all over the world, destroying paths, killing people, taking their land for rubber.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So you do face these types of issues and these types of things that have directly affected their lineage and a lot of them themselves over the past 100 years. Not that long ago. What's happening right now? And so you, if you put yourself in that position, would be very mindful to the things that you shared with the outside world, especially if all you really, really want is a peaceful, healthy home to raise your family.
Yeah. How do you see the future, let's say, I don't know, a few hundred years from now, in regards to modern world and indigenous world? Do you see indigenous world still thriving, existing, growing, expanding? What happens to the Western, like, how do you see that dance? Do you see that balance over time?
I think that as long as we can have a respect for everyone, then everyone can thrive. The indigenous people are people. Just like westernized people are people. We're just people. Right? And if we can all just have a respect, person to person, everyone can thrive in their own way, in their own communities. It's humanizing all of it.
Yeah. What do you feel the local tribes, what kind of attitude do they have towards the outside world? I would just say resentment and like, how do they feel, you think?
They don't really carry resentment because they have a deep understanding of the perfectness of everything. They're careful with the way that they move and the things they say, the things that they share. There's a carefulness.
Do you think that carefulness is amplified now with like all basically is this the current reality that they have to face, or do you think they always lived with that carefulness to their surrounding? Because now maybe they know that, oh, if you tell the outside world we have this rubber that they can monetize, and they would be very cautious of telling the world, so they have to double think, reconsider, and do we say this? So they have to be extra careful. Is that the type of careful, or is it more about being aware of every intricate detail about the surrounding?
I think it's being more aware of every intricate detail of their surrounding, but also being mindful to intentions of people coming into their home. Just as you would.
Yeah.
You have a home.
Yeah.
People that don't speak your language show up one day.
Mm-hmm.
How would you be?
Right.
Would you be like, oh, welcome to my house, stranger?
Yeah.
To a level.
To a level, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But of course you'll have an eye of what is it that you need here.
Right. Right. Once they start, taking your house apart and selling it, it's a different story. Yeah. Yeah, back to kind of what you've learned from them. I want to dive a little bit deeper into understanding their way of life, their relationship to one another, relationship to elders, the youngers. Like what type of lifestyle do they live? Like what does that look like? Maybe describe to me a bit more so I get a better understanding.
So complex, your questions.
Yeah. Sorry.
Their lifestyle is definitely one that is interconnected and supportive of one another. Very supportive. So it's not necessarily that one person maintains a specific role and that's all they do. They take on almost all roles within the community. It's more so whatever needs to be done,
Yeah.
we do it.
They're very involved with everyone's journeys, or like it's a lot more a collective
movement. Right. It's a bit different, right? And there's also like not a store on the corner that you can just like go and buy what you need.
Right.
It's a very hands-on environment with the scenario and the environment changing consistently. And so, like I said before, it requires total presence, but also an understanding of one another and a respect for one another to work together so well and fluidly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think there's a lot to learn from them, how to live your life. I think we can incorporate those ways in Western world, even though you would think Western world is so different, life is completely different. We don't have to rely on each other that much. But I think that's what really disconnects us. All of this buffer of convenience that created barriers and disconnection between humans, and then between even within yourself, that we just become disconnected from life, from the world. What kind of practices do they have for connection, like human connection, or is it just like a daily life is filled with, it's all just a few, do they have like rituals or some kind of organized ways to come together as a community and to connect deeper?
I mean, they are all connected, of course, naturally.
Yes.
There are multiple ways of community communication, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So they do have council meetings. They come together to make decisions. What I love about the community is that not one individual can make a decision for the entirety of the Kofan Nation, for example. Like it requires a 100% agreement from all parties to move forward on any decision.
It's like a perfect democracy?
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah?
Everyone has to agree.
Okay.
To move forward. It does make things a bit of a slower process to do anything. But you know that you're doing it in a way that is 100% alignment with the entire community and the land. These processes aren't just getting 100% approval from each other, but also approval from the ancestors and approval from the land itself. It's so much deeper, the connection that they have. And so until you have that 100% agreement, we don't move forward on something.
And the agreement from the ancestors come through a ceremony that just so there are a few people who are doing that kind of, how does that work? Like how do they get the signals from the ancestors? Is it through a few, how does that work?
I could sit here and blow your mind about the way things operate in the Amazon so much, but I think for like the modern person, it will be difficult to understand potentially how one can connect with their ancestors in this realm.
Well, no, I understand through like plant medicine and deep work.
Also, not necessarily with plant medicine.
Okay.
There's individuals who actually really have the ability to connect with their people, whether it be in this realm or not. It's beyond what a lot of people can really comprehend.
No, I think there are more and more people who can comprehend that, by the way. Yeah, I think people are waking up in a way, becoming aware that there is a layer, a fundamental layer of reality that we're not perceiving that is primary, right? I don't think it's like outside of most people's,
of course. I know that there's many people who do understand. I just think for some that may be listening that can't really comprehend.
And that's all right.
It is one.
That's all right.
It is.
Yeah. If you're listening and you have no idea what we're talking about, you're welcome. It's time to do a little bit of maybe research Googling if you're interested. That sparked your curiosity. But yeah, I mean, I was just curious to get the approval from the ancestors. Is there a particular person in the community who's playing the role of the bridge, basically? How does that work?
There's not necessarily one person in particular,
Yeah.
but I think it's in like a coming together of an understanding. I feel like when you're when you're in a place that you're so connected, like on a level that it might be difficult for many to even understand the level of connectedness that I'm speaking of right now, there is a mutual understandings that take place even without words, where people just know what is the right thing to do or not to do.
Yeah.
And I am not even the best person to answer this question to the depths.
Yeah.
They, of course, would speak to it much better than I.
Of course.
But I think it comes from that type of place.
How do you guys communicate? Because their language is completely different, right?
They speak Spanish as well.
Okay.
They speak Kofan and they speak Spanish.
Okay, that's good.
I mean, most. There's some that speak only Kofan.
And you've mentioned the younger generation now have exposure to Western toys of some sort, like they're being, what the right word, like polluted or some word that it seeps through their awareness. Like, in what way do they have like phones or something? Like, is that what it is? Yeah.
Yes. Phones have made it to the middle of the Amazon rainforest, and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook has also made it there, surprisingly.
Oh.
So you definitely see, honestly, I've only seen it in the past. I've seen like a big shift in the past like 2 years, I want to say. And I'm not speaking to everyone in the community, but you have those who live very deep in the jungle and then those who live like a bit closer to the edge. And I've seen it. I've seen the influence of social media on Indigenous communities.
I'm sure
just within the past 2 years. It's very wild.
I'm sure it's a negative influence.
I think that there's some positive, of course, but also I see things that I hadn't seen before. Things that face, I think, individuals, especially when they're young, when it comes to social media, like certain insecurities, wanting to dress differently, be different. Those types of influences start to come in. And so we're trying to find that balance. And it's funny, they ask us a million questions about America, for example, of like potentially wanting to leave the jungle and come here. But as we tell them about America, they realize they don't really want to. Nothing bad.
Right.
We just share what it's like. And they intuitively make their own decisions and understand where they are is beautiful.
You know, I have this vision where there's this phrase that I'm really sticking to is the most advanced technology is the one that's least noticeable. I see the future in which we are deeply integrated in nature from outside. Let's say aliens come and they look at humans and they say, oh, they live a fairly primitive lifestyle because they don't really see the technology as like an ambient layer. But humans live just fairly primitive lifestyle, still probably have some level of comfort and safety. You don't want to live at scale at like and I don't think it's ever going to happen going back to completely primitive lifestyle. But we do live a lot more in synchronicity, like in sync with nature and understanding that you are part of nature. You don't just build skyscrapers and kill trees around, but you live in like a more like closer to the earth, more connected, and at the same time technologically advanced. and technology is only used for raising consciousness, basically, connecting humans, creating deeper connection on the global scale, and also enhancing the local connections among members who are already there.
What is the main question?
Yeah, no, just this was just a share of how
great.
how I see
because
it.
I took it as a share. I was like, wait, answer you?
Yeah.
No, I agree. I don't know if we'll come to an answer. What is the ultimate way for us to be living? Because we can't understand the perfectness of how everything is right now and the direction that it's moving. We can't actually begin to comprehend where we're going to be as a society in 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. We cannot begin to understand.
Yeah.
A few things that I know to be true is connecting to nature is 100% a big part of it. For ourselves, for our soul.
Yeah.
To get our feet on the ground. To let go of our attachments to heavy material things. Okay, I understand. You want a nice house. You want to have a nice car. Okay, I'm not doubting you for this. But if all of us have a very similar goal of being happy, we just want to be happy and feel good. If we can start to understand how to get to that space, and that most likely it's not going to come from a multitude of material external things.
Yeah.
We can start to get back into who we really are. Connect with ourselves, connect with the earth. Support ourselves, support each other, support the earth. We will start to feel good. We'll start to feel better. And I think if we can move in that direction, so many magical things will come out of it.
Let's see, what is it? Maybe this is a good place for us to start kind of wrapping up the conversation. I'll give you the space to maybe share any last thoughts. Maybe you want to point people to certain resources, or just, share anything that's on your mind or for people to know.
So many things.
Share them all.
I think I'm really grateful to be here and to have this conversation with you and have the opportunity to share a lot of things which I have not shared before about this path and this work that we're doing in the Amazon rainforest. I feel that I ask the audience, whoever is listening to us, to have grace in your listening, because it is more complex than I can even share with words in a short time period. If anyone has any questions at all about the work that we're doing there, or just want to learn more about the Amazon rainforest in general, they can always reach out to me. We have an amazing social media and website, www.sacredamazonia.org. Our Instagram handle also is Sacred Amazonia. I'm on both of those. You can reach out to me there. For those of you who are wanting to come and learn more in person, that opportunity is available as well. Every few months, we have groups come there to the Amazon with us. We have a beautiful little 8-bedroom casita that we built there for those of you who want to stay with us and help out. The last thing I feel would be important to share is what I honestly feel, which is that we are moving forward into a beautiful direction on this earth as a human family. I feel that as we continue to educate ourselves and continue to really come together and to heal, that coming together is a healing. That we can begin to heal as an earth, as a global earth family, and that one cannot happen without the other. And so I ask that we all come together. And if you're looking for opportunities of ways to get involved, again, reach out to me. We're open. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for doing this beautiful work. I know that you're definitely not doing it to impress anyone. You're only doing it because you can't do anything else. This is your calling. This is I can feel that this is something beyond yourself. This is just an energy of healing that you're tapping into. You're serving as a vessel for change. So yeah, thank you for the work. Very important.
Thank you for seeing it. Beautiful. I've dedicated my life 100%. Full jump. And it's powerful. It's a blessing.
Yeah. Thank everyone for being here. Hope you enjoyed our conversation. We'll leave all of the information in the show notes, and see you on the next one.